Not really?
I'm not.
Because hockey was, is a
I know.
sport
Soccer was and hockey. I never was into sports, and I would get hurt if I try. So my parents were very protective over me, and they didn't want me even riding a bicycle. That was dangerous.
Yeah.
They had me. They had me later in life, so they were really protective.
My mother, I played sports in junior high and high school, and I was a little guy. Me and you are little guys,
right?
And but I played. I actually made. I was good enough to make the team.
All right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, in football, I weighed 135 pounds. But I could tackle pretty well. I could wrap up somebody's legs. So I was just on kickoff return and shit like that, But all my buddies were playing and stuff. And then I wrestled, which was, weight class, so it didn't matter. And I really enjoyed wrestling. And but my mother would not come to ever see me play because she goes, if you get hurt, she goes, I'm your mother and I'm going to embarrass you. I'm going to be down. I'm going to be on the field. I'm going to be on the mat. They're going to tell me I can't come. I'm going to shove them out of the way. I'm going to come out there because you're my little boy, even though you're not a little boy, and you won't like it.
I won't go.
That's exactly what's going to happen. So she goes. She never came and watched me play, which was fine, But
that was the real reason.
Yes, the real reason.
The real
absolutely,
reason. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because she had nothing against sports.
Sure,
but
sure.
She is like, you can get hurt. You get hurt all the time in those kind of things.
True.
And
No,
so
my parents were, you're not doing those. Well, and I earlier in my life realized that when I would tell jokes, I was the center of attention.
Right.
Early in life, and then it continued through my whole life. So the sports I wasn't good at, math or other in studying I wasn't good at. So
but you didn't even enjoy watching? Not so much? Okay.
No, my dad didn't, and they would pretend that they were fans of some soccer team or whatever, but other people were like real fans, and my dad would just go, yeah, we'll watch. It never got to me. It never got, unfortunately. Maybe I don't know what it is. It was more, that's the way I grew up. And now when I look, everybody's playing golf. You are playing golf. I don't play golf because I don't like to be on the sun. Otherwise, I'd probably go. But there is no, is there golf at night?
There isn't. Now I'll take that back. I have heard of
like
some
fluorescent light bulbs or
little short 9-hole course that have lit the courses. And as a matter of fact, as I say, I had totally forgotten. When I was a kid, there was a little par 3 course, which was a very short course, and it was lit. And you could play it at night.
There you go.
And we used to play it at night quite often.
See,
it was fun to be out there.
That's my sport.
They do have a thing that you do that you play with a glow ball.
Yeah,
which is a whole different thing.
Well, it's more like a putt. What is it for kids?
Oh yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I do that at night. That's fine. With
So
kids
so as far as hobbies or things off of work with your family, were they more into the arts, music, theater, that sort of thing?
I think it was more of a survival. My dad was an inventor, so he would just come up with stuff that nobody could imagine, and so he would say, well, we have a small room, but now I have a teenage son and we're living in one room, let's put a partition. So that would be like his kind of a thing. And then he would do those things. Mom would teach school many hours, so they weren't really into like some kind of a hobby.
There wasn't time.
There wasn't time. There wasn't. It was more like sleep, food, basic stuff that needed to be there. And I picked it up. I went. My mom wanted me to go and get 2 high school diplomas. Yeah, I mean, weird. She was that. She was a teacher, and she said you can apply to university with 1 diploma, and this way you can apply to 2 universities. So she was clever, but I would go to school and I would study and so. But I enjoyed really making jokes. So then being in school twice, I mean, I would go to day school and evening school. And I would just gather people around me. They just always just couldn't wait till for the break so they can hear some more jokes.
Nice.
So that was kind of where it started.
Right. And now we're about the same age, right?
Yeah, I'm 74.
Oh, you're a little older than I am. Yeah, 4 years. But that's see, I grew up in an environment where, as far as being a stand-up comedian or a joke teller, there was no, I mean, we were funny. We were funny.
Right.
We were just naturally kind of funny. But the idea of that turning into a career, no.
Having your own theater.
Oh God, no. Matter of fact, I mean, where I grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, it was all sports. If you were a boy, it was sports. I mean, that was pretty much the deal. And the idea that you were going to go into theater or anything, or even music, really, as a professional, there was no connection to that. I mean, there was nobody knew anybody.
Yeah.
Nobody knew anybody that knew anybody who did that for a living. So, it was like.
For me, it was in the Soviet Union to do comedy was insane, I mean, because people would disappear off the face of the earth if they said something wrong. So the whole thing was a major challenge even to consider. So when I would say, what about my parents would go, no, my first education was a refrigeration mechanic. And it was like high school with training, whatever it's called, professional school.
Right.
And they said, that's a job. Comedian, no. And then I went to military for 2 years, and I was telling jokes there, like during holiday or whatever, they would involve me. So that was, again, back to that. And then my parents, again, when I got back from there, they said, you got to go to college after the military. And so I went and got a degree as a teacher of art. I was pretty good at that, actually. My dad was really good in engineering and drawings and things like that. So I got that degree, and then I started teaching art there in the Soviet Union. But all alone, I was going to a club somewhere and telling jokes. And then when I started getting paid for telling jokes, then my parents went like, oh, maybe. And then I started working on a cruise ship, and that was a fascinating thing that happened there, because they invited me to do a show, not a show, like a week, and be like an assistant of cruise director.
Right.
So I would put together different contests and different things with people. And this is normally in the Soviet Union, they would not allow us to communicate with anybody from another country. We were that restricted. They said, no, if you see a foreigner, go across the street. You don't want to be seen with a foreigner. So we didn't know anything about anything else. We just knew what they told us, right?
Right.
And in this case, they gave me, they had me for a week there, and I was not getting paid, but I had a vacation on a cruise.
Was everybody on the cruise Russian?
No, there were people from like Czechoslovakia and Poland and Germany, groups of people. and some Russian, some.
So all communist Eastern.
Most likely,
Yeah.
but once in a while we would get a group from Australia or New Zealand
Oh, okay.
or sometimes United States. I don't remember Canada sometimes, but to me they were all foreigners because I didn't speak any of their languages, and so I go on this cruise and it went well and they go. I said, well, I haven't seen my parents. I was touring before that. Can I bring them on the cruise for next cruise? And I'll go for free and do what they. And they said, who do you think you are? You're not going to tell us what to do. Get out of here. You'll never work here again. Right?
Really?
It's Soviet attitude. It's like, and so I go home, and then I tell my parents, like, I was trying, but it didn't happen. And that was like in the morning, ships come in the morning, and about 10 o'clock in the morning, a messenger brings 2 sets of tickets for me and my parents. And I'm like, this never happened. I haven't heard that that's even possible.
Right.
Once they kick you out, you're out, right?
Sure.
So we go there. We're excited. We go on the cruise. And I go to a cruise director who I became friendly with. And I go, what happened? How is it possible that they changed their mind? He said, well, we lease these ships to foreign countries 9 months out of the year. And we work the higher, the captain and their staff goes with the ship. So we learned that if somebody is good at something, they deserve more than others. Blew me away. Right. I was 23 years old and I had no idea are you saying that out there, not everybody's equal? No, they get, if you're a professional, if you're good at something, and the captain saw you perform, and you said, even if you need to give him my cabin, I want him on the ship for next cruise. That's how it happened. So I went like, holy cow. That means if I go to America or other country and I'm talented, maybe I can do more. So, and my mom was very much against us going to anywhere.
Right.
She was scared. She was a member of the Communist Party. It was just a token thing to do, and they would just make you feel horrible if you say, I want to leave. So she didn't want to go. But when she watched me perform, and I wasn't performing like here, I was just doing master of ceremonies stuff. So they would give me an interpreter, and I would talk to the Polish people and say, here's their rules. Here you put an egg on the spoon and you run with it, okay? And then I told the Germans, and then I told this whatever, and then I would comment in Russian on what was happening, but they were laughing. Everybody was laughing. And my mom, for the first time, she went, you have an international audience. Maybe we should go. That's how it. That's how.
What year? What year was that?
We came in '77.
Okay.
So the process, we had to wait 2 years. So it started like '75 when we applied for a visa, and it took 2 years to get out. But
who was in charge?
Brezhnev, the one eyebrow guy.
Right.
Mean guys. And you see what happened. I think I didn't even realize how lucky I was. I came. America kind of saw me. Mitzi Shore was the first one,
right,
who kind of said, "There's always place for good and different. Stick around." I'm like, wow, and I didn't know who she was, and then,
yeah.
So the rest is history, and then what I realized that Americans used to looking at those mean Russian politicians like Khrushchev, that was banging his shoe in
Right.
the night. And we will bury you, right?
Right.
And Brezhnev was this, and I show up on national television and they go, "We're afraid of this." Are you kidding me? And that really was my break.
Right. And so to come over back then, I mean, I'd almost, the way you think about it, you almost be like, just to say that you want to leave could get you thrown in prison.
No, well, they were pretty clever, because here's what was happening. Jimmy Carter was the president here, and Russians they didn't have enough food. Literally, people were starving.
Got you.
So they made a deal with America, with Jimmy Carter, said, "Give us, some food." And Jimmy Carter was very liberal, obviously. He said, "Show some human rights in your country. Allow people who want to leave, and we'll give you food." So we were literally exchanged for some grain or something.
Gotcha.
I tell it in my show that every time I hear a Wonder Bread truck, I see a Wonder Bread truck, I salute, and then I wonder. So this is one of those things that happened.
How did you know that?
Because I was in the cruise ships.
Ah.
I wouldn't know.
Gotcha.
Most people didn't know.
Right.
And then I had a couple of friends who immigrated earlier, like a couple of years before. And they were a friend of ours. Actually, her son was at the first show. She was pregnant with him when she came to America. And she was writing letters to me. She said, "If you want to come, forget comedy. You're never going to be able to do it, because there are people like Donnie and Marie Osmond who are hilarious, and you can't beat that, And so, but I was hooked. Even though I didn't speak English when I got here, I was like, I got to go. I got to watch comedy. I got to see it.
How long did it take you from the time you got here to develop English in a way that you could perform?
Well, it depends what you consider actual performance.
That you could, you could.
People would
headline.
Understand me.
I mean, yeah.
People headline.
You could do 45 minutes.
Probably 5 years.
Okay.
Or so. Maybe, let's see. I came to the Comedy Store. It was early 78. And then I did a movie with Robin Williams in 81, but my English was still very bad. But I was already kind of testing myself in the comedy clubs.
Right.
And then, the usual, the opening act, and then little by little become the feature, and then all of a sudden you got enough material to punchy stuff that you're headlining. And then that's an interesting story that happened. So I worked I got a job as a bar boy at the Catskills, in the Catskills.
Yeah.
At the Grossinger's Hotel.
Oh, sure. The famous. Right? Yeah.
And I was getting $1.20 an hour, but I didn't care.
Right.
They said, shave your beard because we don't want people to, in a bar or whatever. I said, I'll shave my head. Whatever you want, I want to be. Why? Because I don't know if you've ever been there, but it was a beautiful bar, a Pink Elephant it was called, bar, and then adjacent to it, 2,000-seat theater. So when people would come to the show, they would sit in the bar, and they would talk to me, I became a bartender after a little while, but and they would see my name tag, and they would see Yakov, and they would go, what's your last name? And I go, Pokies. And they go, what? And then I got tired of them going, what? So I saw a bottle of Smirnoff behind me, and I go, my name is Yakov Smirnoff. And they would laugh, they would smile, and they would ask me questions. And that's how I started developing my routine, by just answering their questions.
Right.
And And then they gave me a chance to perform. I asked them, like about 6 months into it, I said, I translated a few jokes. Can I do a show, like open or warm up or something? And the guy, Jerry Weiss was his name, he said, no, I can't put you in the main show, but we have Simon Says in the afternoons for old people, and maybe the guy who runs it, maybe he'll let you do 5 minutes. So I went on, and he gave me that chance, and I and I did few jokes, and a woman in the crowd, there was only like 30 people, 40 people. She was like, and I think she's laughing. She was having seizures at that, and they brought the hernia, what is it called?
The gurney.
The gurney.
Yeah.
Gurney. And they took her out, and people coming to me and they're going, you are killing, man. And I go, no, I wasn't killing, no. And what was interesting about that moment, that a young son of, well, he wasn't that young. He was probably about 20 or so. He was a son of the owners of the Grossingers, Mark Edis. And he saw me doing that crazy thing that happened. And he was standing kind of behind the post. And I noticed him, but I didn't know him. Anyway, so years later, he becomes Trump's right-hand guy at the Trump casino in Atlantic City, in Trump Plaza Casino.
Gotcha.
And he saw me on Tonight Show, and he calls me and goes, I want you at the headlining at the casino. And Marie Osmond was opening for me.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was like one of those things that from that moment, it took like probably 5 years before I got the 86 is I got in the Tonight Show. So 84, maybe 84. So yeah, so it was still like a while before. But then it just...
Well, and you, like me, we were in that beginning of the comedy club explosion.
That's right.
You know, and so you were, even at that, you were in that first wave of headliners.
I was.
You were, you know, with Paul Reiser
and
Jay Leno and
yeah.
Gary Shandling and all those guys that were the first headliners out there. You know, I used to hear your name, you know, and I was just I got started in about 82.
Yeah.
You know, down here in the South, and then kind of took it from there. But yeah, that we were all in the right place at the right time for comedy. You know,
and I totally fell into it because it was the right need was met.
Oh, sure.
The America needed. I don't know if you heard me tell the joke that Russia was a pain in the butt, and I was Preparation H.
Yes.
And that's true. But then when the swelling and the itching goes away, you don't need Preparation H. So that's how I found Branson. I was desperate. I didn't know where to go. Right. And it was two little kids and no money. And thank God in Branson they didn't know.
Right.
They don't really care because there it's like real Wild West. You have a shovel, you want to dig for gold, go for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
You got a lot of competition for those 5 or 6 hours in the afternoon, and they're going to run around and see shows, and
you gotta.
And there wasn't another comedy show there, was there?
Not really.
That's what I'm saying.
More like hillbilly comedy with no teeth and things like that.
Yeah.
But no, brand name, and I'm the only one left there with the national name because Andy Williams passed away, and all of those guys. Mel Tillis was gone. I mean. They started. I came in last, and I'm the last one to stick around there.
Is Branson still getting good numbers?
It's decent. It's not ever, and I don't know if it'll ever will be that way because the synergy at that time was so all of the stars, the Bobby Vinton and Tony Orlando, and all of them just were,
Right.
and then Mel Tillis, do you remember him?
Oh, yeah.
So he was stuttering, right?
Yes.
So they asked him on 60 Minutes, they said, how much money do you make in Branson? He goes, millions. And all of a sudden, Andy Williams showed up, and Tony Orlando showed up, and I showed up because I had no place to go.
Right.
Willie Nelson actually didn't make it there. He was trying, but they didn't accept that he smoked pot.
Ah.
And they didn't kick him out, but he couldn't stay there.
Right.
And
Too conservative.
I fit there.
I went there. We went there one time. My brother-in-law was stationed in I can't remember the name of the Army base. There's an Army base real close to Branson.
Fort Leonard Wood.
Fort Leonard Wood.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was there, and so with my wife's sister Kay, and they had 2 kids. So the whole family decided to go to Branson.
Oh,
her
nice.
side of the family.
Nice.
There was I don't know. There was like 15 of us.
Nice.
And we went, and by that time Branson was kicking along. You may have been there then.
I came in 93.
Oh, okay. So you weren't there
No,
for sure.
no.
Yeah.
And
Pam and I got married in 87, and our daughter was born in 94. It was before she was born.
So I might have just
right around the
the
end, because we saw Andy Williams, and we saw the Asian violin.
Japanese fiddle player, Soji Tabuchi.
He was
Great.
incredible.
Yeah.
And the laser show. I remember the laser
know,
show was
I
really,
know.
really. We'd never seen that before.
That's what hooked me, because after Willie Nelson tells me go to Branson, I go, maybe I should. So I went to check it out, and I walked into Soji Tabuchi's theater, 2,000-seat theater, in the afternoon, 2 p.m. matinee, packed.
Right.
I'm like, what? Where am I? What is this? And I never heard of this guy.
Right.
And there are 2,000 people here. Then I go to see Andy Williams. I didn't know about Andy Williams either, because I came to America. He was already off the air.
Got ya.
I didn't know who he was, and here's 2,000 people there.
Right.
I'm like going, what is this? And so that's what made me realize I better stick around here. Jim Stafford was.
Yeah.
Jim, a good guy, and he saw me in the audience. I came. I think this was those 3 shows that I saw, and he said, "Yakov, you want to come up and do a few minutes?" And I came up, and that 5 minutes, they loved me.
He picked you right out of the audience?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. So it was like, I go, man, I better get here. Well, it took a while because they book way in advance, especially those days. The buses book you like a year in advance. So I thought I'll do well right away. No.
Right.
First show I had 17 people.
Got
And
it.
then second show like 19 people. So I was.
Were you in somebody else's theater?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was renting. I was going, oh my God, this is not going to work, because 2 little kids, I have nothing coming in.
Right.
What am I going to do? So, but I'm a hardworking guy, and I just rolled up my sleeves, start hustling more and more and more and more. More people start coming in. They like what they saw. And in that town, because it's a word of mouth, if they like you, they'll promote you. And
Right.
so a year later, I'm now averaging, but I would do 400 shows a year,
Right.
because I didn't have, I just figure 18 people, 20 people,
Sure.
100 people, whatever. I'll take whatever I can take. And the numbers were growing, and then I'd say 95, 2.5, maybe 3 years later, I moved to a Grand Palace, which seats 4,000 people. And I would average, but I was doing breakfast show. I would serve breakfast in the boxes called Yak in the Box. And I would, mom's recipe, pierogies and whatever. And we would feed like 2,000 people and for breakfast. And I would do shows. I was surviving. I had to I had to survive, and it was a good place for me. It still is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so, and that, that's interesting. I didn't realize you did that so early on. Branson.
Yes.
And I more thought maybe you toured for maybe 10 or 15 years and then ended up in Branson after already being famous.
Oh yeah, I did, but it was, I became unfamous very fast.
Right.
Once the media plays a huge part in this.
Right.
I mean, Zelensky was famous yesterday,
Yeah.
and then we don't know what's going to happen. It's like, you know what I'm saying?
You're right.
It's that quick.
Mhm.
And when you are riding that wave that is politically, in which I was riding that wave, it's like there was an impersonator, Van Meter, if you know, who was impersonating John F. Kennedy.
Okay.
And he was great, and he was headlining everywhere. Guess what happens when John F. Kennedy got shot? His career was zero.
Right.
That happened for me.
Just crashed quick.
Yeah.
Wow.
And in Branson, they don't care. I mean,
Right.
they just go, "You're funny, stick around."
Right. Well, I know a couple of comics that tried, to go and do 3 months or 4 months when in somebody else's theater
Yeah.
when they were taking off, and everybody said there's just, they've got so many hours they're going to be there. They're not there long.
You need
And
to.
you've got enough stars there, or at least the
Absolutely.
top shows.
Exactly. And the
that-
comedians, whoever is there, whoever is singer or comedian, they need to commit to it. That's it's almost it's like a marriage for that town. Are you planning to just screw me around or screw around with me, or are you actually going to marry me?
Right.
And if you marry me, then we'll give you our support.
Right.
And that's kind of what that is. That's why I stay. I've been there 32 years.
Right. Well, I think your story and my story is a little bit the same. I think we experienced that when we came to Sarasota. And of course, we did this because once Pam and I got married, I was like, I'm not gonna be away from her.
Right.
Most of our,
right.
I'm not gonna. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
She's more important to me than
Yeah.
than. But I'd certainly like to keep doing this, and that's what the decision was: either go to New York or L.A. and live there and stay there most of the time and just work out of that and see if you can make something happen, or we knew we loved this area, come here. And when we first came here and opened up in a little banquet room in a Holiday Inn, they treated us like we were a verbal strip club. That's what we were. To this town, we were not an art form.
Got it.
We're not, and
No.
this was an arts
And this
community.
This arts community that likes circus.
Yeah, well,
and they think that
you
stand
had.
up.
I know. Well, it was based on circus, but you had here when we got here, you had 5 or 6 community theaters.
Oh, really?
2 of them were equity professional
Oh, wow.
theaters. You had the Opera House, which had a professional opera, and I mean was one of the top
Interesting.
ones in the country. You had Van Wezel, the Performing Arts Hall, that were bringing in big stars, and then you had a symphony, you had a ballet, you had all this stuff. Comedy was verbal stripping.
Interesting.
That's what we were.
Interesting.
And they, and I think we experienced that same thing. Florida's like that. It's a transient state.
Yeah.
And it's like so many people, come into a town, especially if it's not a big city, like
Right.
a Miami or
Right.
Orlando,
Right.
but come into a mid-sized town.
Right.
And it's like, are you just coming in to get a quick pop, take the money and run, scam? There's so many scam artists and all this kind of stuff. Are you really going to be
There you
part
go.
of this community,
There you go.
know? And once they realized that Pam and I were here,
Committed.
we're here to stay, and then we had several people in town that were very, very successful, very wealthy, in that upper echelon here, that fell in love with us, started coming to the shows, and went, well, these guys aren't bullshit. You know, Pam's got a master's degree, Les has a BFA in theater. They're not bullshit, and the acts they're bringing in are really quality, even though it's in a banquet room in a back of a Holiday Inn back there, because it's all we could afford.
Right.
And you know, and then it just, you know, it got better and better and better. But we were able to make our livelihoods without having to tour.
And doing what you love to do.
Doing what you love to do.
And having your name on the theater. I don't know, except of you and me, I don't know if any other comedian has their own theater.
No. I mean, you know, that I know of either. I mean, I know that Jeff Valdez had the comedy club in Colorado Springs.
Okay,
or
okay.
I don't think it was named Valdez, though.
I see.
I think it was, but I know he had a club.
Jimmy Kimmel has a club.
Now Kimmel has a club. Brad Garrett has the club in Vegas.
That makes sense.
There's a few of those. But early, I mean, you know, you're talking about in the 90s, even the early 2000 to 2000, that 20-year period.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't think there was.
But good for you for making that choice. And good for me to spot a Japanese fiddle player and go, if he can do it, I can do it, you know?
Yeah.
That, and thank God it worked out.
Well, and you developed that uber patriotic show, which to that clientele, it couldn't be better. I mean, you know, that's definitely, you know, and it was wholesome, and you know, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And that's great. It's great to be able, Pam and I've talked about, to be able to make our living off of what we love to do, which of course is just the beautiful thing of anybody's life.
And play golf during the day.
Yeah. Well, you know, people always ask, I'm sure y'all probably got it too, you know, what do y'all do all day? Like, we just fuck around. Like, you know, do you think these people just show the fuck up? I mean, you know, are you kidding me? You know, they don't realize that all the hours you put in just to make sure that there's people in that room every show.
And I really admire your operation, in addition to being a great club, because I get the privilege to see it, like your people that you hire, and how they care about the employees and performers, and that you keep marketing proactively.
Right.
That inspired me. I literally came in here when I was doing this podcast with Steve, and then I see that you have like 2 telemarketers sitting there making phone calls.
Right.
And to me, it just was like, I called my staff. I don't have a big staff right now because I'm off on this. I'm going back tomorrow. But I called and I said, we need to hire a marketing sales team. Otherwise, it's going to be, it's getting harder to sell, especially when I want to be back on the road more.
Right.
My wife is very supportive, which I'm very grateful. She goes, just go do it, and I decided for the next couple of years, I feel very healthy and strong, and I feel like I'm tightening my act to the point that I feel like I can do bigger venues and things like that. So I'm committing myself to doing clubs, because that's where you get better at just doing 2 shows a night. You're like a boxer. You get beat up, and then you go, I know what I did wrong.
In this day and time, in America, are there any other Russian comedians that
not that
you know of?
No, the Barat was kind of a parody. Barat, and he was a parody. Not that I know of anyone, which surprises me somewhat, because I've been off the scene for about 32 years. I mean, in Branson, you're like in the witness protection program. nobody knows where you live.
Right, right.
So I thought there might be somebody who will come out and be. I haven't heard.
Because, I mean, we're just talking. I'm just sitting here thinking, now in this day and time, Russia is so much in the back, in the forefront of everybody's head, like it was during the Cold War. Where now there's a lot of anxiety wrapped around Russia and what will they do and all this, that, and the other. And
I can commentate on it.
Of course you can.
So I waited 32 years for it,
well,
to come back.
Everything circles around, right?
But yesterday, majority of people probably didn't like what happened in the White House, in the Oval Office, because there was like, what's the 180 deal going on there?
Right.
I was actually watching it and going, now I can do comedy about this. Because to me, and especially if they actually start shooting, then it's like, okay, I'm ready. Otherwise, it's too soon. You can't joke about it. So today, I already got two people who send me some funny stuff about this.
Right.
My pastor in the church, he does comedy sometimes, and his bit was hilarious. Ted Cunningham, and he sent me this bit, and I thought it was very funny. He said, I watched this thing last night at the White House, and I realized this is just like me in Disney World with my kids. That Trump is going, can't you just be grateful? I spent $350 billion on getting you into this park, and the Zelensky, blah, 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 blah. Just be grateful. Very funny. And the other, somebody sent me, I guess it's already circulating, that Putin is offering now a peace talks between Trump and Zelensky.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's hilarious stuff, but I think it's because it was so, before that, it was so surreal.
Yes.
I grew up in Ukraine.
Right.
So for me, and I speak Russian. My wife and I speak Russian, but she grew up in Ukraine as well. So it's like brothers fighting, and you go, how can I make fun about it? I can't.
Right.
Now I was like, okay, time might be, and who knows what's going to happen.
Right. Well, it once again, it just might be right that you're the guy, that can put some kind of levity to this
People
insane
need it.
situation.
People want it.
Yeah, because there's so much fear wrapped around the fact that people really think that Russia might start, invading other countries. But
Russia can't handle Ukraine.
Oh, I know. I don't. I mean, for me, and I mean, what the fuck do I know? I don't know. But just logically looking at it and what happened in there, is I go, well, I see. We've all come to some understanding of why Putin did what he did. It's almost like a grab your balls. That was ours, and we're taking it back. You took my toy, and now I'm going to take my toy back. It's almost like that kind of shit. But it's not like I looked at that and went, oh, they're going to invade France next. I go, no, they're not going to invade France, because, and this is the scariest part of it, because you step over that line, the nuclear shit starts to really come into play. Is that
starting?
Yeah, that's the pre-show. Oh. One of the things I like about this podcast is, when it ends? When they introduce me. When they introduce me.
We can talk about this all day long.
You could even stay and talk to yourself. You just
I'll finish this.
Yeah, do whatever.
Les is going to be back in a half an hour. Let me just tell you what I listen, I have a feeling that because I'm more on the inside, because I know what happened and I follow it because of my family there and all of that. And it's not as simple as we were told on media in the media. So, and I think that's it will start coming out more and more about why the invasion. Because we never. I can listen to Putin because he speaks my language. I can listen to commentary. I'm paying attention to all of that, and you start realizing, wait a minute, is that really what we perceived that happened in 2014, or is there something else that was happening? It's like watching a magic show. CIA is really good in doing magic.
Sure.
How do we start coups? They're awesome at that. And they did a coup in 2014. And they overthrew the government of Ukraine that was pro-Putin. Right? And all of a sudden, it's America who did it, right? Now, they installed America 2 weeks before. I'm getting into politics now.
It's interesting, though, because you are someone who understands, who has that information.
Yeah,
really.
Gloria Nuland was Secretary of Defense for Obama and Hillary and all of that. And she staged that coup. And I know people who were sitting there in center of Kiev, and they gave them $50 a day to sit there, just to sit there. And they accumulate like 100,000 people. And then a couple of snipers took out a couple of people on both sides, and hell broke loose. And the president, who was a Putin's puppet, flee. So now, all of a sudden, think about if you're Putin, and you have your nuclear submarines are in Crimea, in Sevastopol, right? And your government, the guy who you trusted, is gone. And NATO is about to get in and take your nuclear submarines and everything else. Wouldn't you take a shotgun and kind of go, not going to happen, right?
Right.
So if you look at history, Putin gets into Crimea 6 days later. No shots fired, none. 40,000 troops come in, no marking on them, this Russian army, just some hired troops. And they take over Crimea and they take over Donbass. That's it. And all of a sudden, the people who staged the coup, the Gloria Nuland and Obama and Biden, and they're like, what happened? We had it all figured out. How did he do it? It's like you play chess. It's like he went with a horse, went like, okay, you want to play dirty with me? I'll play dirty with you. So
there's always more to it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's like a magic trick. You don't know. So most people who are watching this right now, he's just a Putin sympathizer. He's just, no, I'm watching the damn thing. I know people who sat in Maidan.
I got ready to
You
go.
got to go.
Yeah. I can't wait. We're going to find out more. Thanks, Yakov.
You're welcome. Thanks. Have a good show.